Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible, and today we're going to be looking at 8 brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream today. So let's get into it right now. Now we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with the movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. I also want to touch on the availability of these titles, as I have personally went to each one of the services and assured that these titles are available. And if you are having trouble seeing them, there is probably one of two reasons. One, you might be region locked. And the other reason is if you are using the alternative media sites or any of the free stuff, sometimes these movies won't show up because a lot of these movies came out just like yesterday, so they will not be on those sites for a couple days. And lastly, this is just a preview. These are not reviews and recommendations. As always, I've included chapters and timestamps in the description, so if you don't like any of the trailer reactions or any of the movies I've picked, you can always skip to the next one. And if you did want some recommendations, then I suggest you watch my Every Movie I Watched in a Month series, my You Should Watch series, or any of my movie list series. This here is just a little something for the diehards like me that are always looking for something new to watch. And with that, let's get right to the movies. Now we are going to look at the first movie, but before we do, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for all the support that I've gotten thus far. I do say it at the end of the video sometimes, but I know by this point, people probably totally skip the intro and the outro, so I just wanted to make sure that within the movies, I let each and one of you know that I thank you so much for the support. Also, it looks like we've got a decent lineup of good budget movies this week, so I'm excited to get into it. So the first movie we're going to take a look at this week is a straight horror named The Dead Thing. And this movie's available on Shudder.
We don't really need to talk, do we?
A young woman lost in a series of meaningless connections falls in love with a charismatic and sensitive man who hides a dark secret that turns her affair into a dangerous obsession. It is directed by Elric Kane. Okay, so after watching the trailer for The Dead Thing, this looks like a good psychological style thriller horror. Now, the first thing that caught my attention right away is that this one looks like it's got a good, mysterious, twisty-turny story. I also thought that the film had a great aesthetic, and it kind of just like really pulled me in right away. Now, this movie doesn't look like it's going to contain traditional creeps and scares, but I think we're going to get some really intense moments and a good kind of mysterious amnesia interaction between the characters. And by the time the film is done, I'm sure it's going to give us some great twists and revelations that lead to some great aha moments. Now, one of the downsides that I did kind of see with the film is that if you are in the mood to kind of be like terrified or scared, although this looks like a really good movie, I just don't think it's going to scratch that itch. The Dead Thing does look like a great kind of horror mystery that's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
Hey, I need to talk to you. Kyle?
I'm sorry. Have we met?
You don't remember me?
What, are you stalking me?
Next movie we're going to take a look at is an action horror thriller named Dead Whisperer 2, and this movie is available on Netflix. In a world shrouded by darkness, a relentless force seeks retribution, undeterred by boundaries or morality. It is directed by Tawiwat Wantha. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Death Whisperer 2, this one looks like a good supernatural action horror. Now, the first thing that really did stick out to me in this film is that it does look like it has some pretty good creeps and scares in it. Not only that, I like the fact that it kind of came along with this good, brutal, practical gore. Honestly, there was just some pretty graphic stuff shown right in the trailer that did excite me. Now, watching the trailer, I couldn't exactly get like a really good firm handle on exactly what this movie's about, but it did look of like really eventful and action-packed. One of the only womps when it came to this trailer was that if you aren't into subtitles, I think you're going to be disappointed, because when I went and kind of checked the movie on Netflix, I didn't see an English track. Now, even if we take the subtitles aside, because personally I don't mind them, I think that Death Whisperer 2 looks like a good, creepy kind of action horror, and it's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
พี่ยักษ์สัญญากับยี่ก่อนนะว่าพี่ยักษ์จะกลับมา
ได้สิ พี่สัญญา ช่วยผมด้วย อย่าไปสนใจมัน
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror thriller named Sumala, and this movie is available on Netflix. Sumala, a name that is feared by people in a village in Semarang Regency from past until now. No one dares to go out when night falls because Sumala will come to kill. It is directed by Rizal Mantovani. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Sumala, this looks like another good foreign supernatural horror. Now, one of the first things that really gripped me about the trailer was that I did think that the movie just looked brutal and bloody. And if you really put this one alongside Death Whisperer 2, I think that both of these movies are going to be like the Gorehound picks of the week. Now, I don't really want to sound like I am some sort of kinky masochist, but the fact that this movie just had so much good practical gore right in the trailer, it really did excite me. I also did really like the idea of the story, just this kind of cursed child angle, and then maybe the demon child still exists, or maybe it's all in her mind, but it just was kind of intriguing and had a decent level of mystery to it. Now, another thing that I really did like, and this might be a little bit more esoteric, not exactly specific to this film, but I do like how some of these kind of foreign horrors, you know, a lot of the kind of Asian ones, I do like how they embody this almost classic horror style where, you know, the main character might turn into some unreal kind of zombie creature. I do like those trappings. I miss kind of not having just that meta, you know, ultra real, ultra bleak, but just like a good kind of slapstick in its own way horror film. And again, I do like the fact that instead of like this kind of weird grief meta, you just get something that's like pretty straightforward and gory. Now, I want to be clear, I do of course love that kind of cerebral meta. As you know, I do love kind of the smarter movies, but sometimes I do just like some classic bloodshed. Now, again, the only drawback that I could really see to this film is, will of course again lie with the people who just don't like subtitled films. And again, this is a foreign movie, so you will have to kind of overcome that subtitle boss to enjoy it. Now, I really like the fact that Sumala just looks like good and bloody, and I do think that the film is going to attempt like some pretty good creeps and scares, so this one is going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
Kowe akan mengandung anak kembar.
Mau dikasih nama siapa?
Yang satu cantik dan baik hati dari bangsa manusia.
Sumala.
Dan yang satunya lagi, buruk rupa dan nakal dari bangsa iblis.
Sumala.
The next movie we're going to take a look at is an action fantasy horror named A Night's War. And this movie is available on VOD Digital. More specifically, I found it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV+.
I take no joy in your destruction.
A fearless knight braves a deadly realm to save the chosen one's soul. Facing witches, demons, and brutal foes, he discovers her return could ignite chaos and doom humanity. It is directed by Matthew Nienaber. Okay, so after watching the trailer for A Knight's Tale, this looks like a decent fantasy horror. Now, the first thing that struck me right off the bat was that I really do just love a medieval setting. Now, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, back when it was with just your imagination, because I know that nowadays they have like boards and all this stuff. So I really do love that kind of sword and sorcery fantasy angle. It's just, again, just one of my favorite settings, and I really think that this movie is going to deliver well on that myth and mysticism. Now, I also thought that the costumes looked good. The antagonist kind of looked good and dark. It just looked like, again, a really good setting, and I usually find not only is it an action horror, but in these kind of medieval settings, we usually get a good level of blood and gore. I also thought that throughout the trailer, some of the characters just looked really dark. So I am excited to see a more medieval fantasy kind of go that horror route, as I do feel like it's a premise that we just don't see that often. Now, the only even minor criticism I could levy to the movie is that being such an overt fantasy, I feel like it's not going to be creepy. Like, we might get some good scares, we might get some good jump scares and stuff, but I just don't think that the film's going to be creepy. But I'm really excited for this setting, so I think that this one's going to get a higher priority on my watch list.
Long ago, a prophecy foretold the rise of a chosen one. A woman with fiery hair who would reshape the world. Something dark has happened here. Whatever they're preparing, it happens tonight. Go find the men and tell them what you have seen. The prophecy is true.
The next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror thriller named Mom, and this movie is available on VOD Digital. Or more specifically, I was able to find this movie on Fandango at home.
Am I a bad mother?
Struggling with postnatal depression and feeling misunderstood by her husband, Meredith begins to experience terrifying visions, foreshadowing an ultimate tragedy. It is directed by Adam O'Brien. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Mom, this looks like a good kind of postpartum psychological creeper. Now, right off the hop, with some of the visions that the main character Meredith was having, I just felt that this movie looked like it had a good creepy vibe. Also, I find that in these stories where it kind of centers around the character having these visions, we usually get some pretty good jump scares. Now, although the film didn't really give me this overly gory vibe, we did get to see some pretty good imagery. At one point, she did see some baby cribs full of blood. And I do find that in these postpartum movies, especially when they have these visions, we do get to see the main character do some pretty heinous acts to the baby. Like some of the kind of postpartum instances I can think of right off the top is the baby in the fridge or the baby in the microwave. So we could get a couple of good gore elements there. Now, even though the premise isn't really unique at all, at least it's a premise I like. Now, not to be too macabre, but I really like these stories where characters kind of have these mental episodes and then over time they become unglued and unravel. And with the things that she really goes through, I do think that what we see on screen is going to be some mental suffering that's significant. Now, personally, I thought that Mom looked good and creepy, albeit a little bit of a generic story, but it's still going to earn a regular spot on my watch list.
Now he's here. And I'm a dad thanks to you. And you're a mom thanks to me.
Am I a bad mother?
Do you remember when you started feeling this way?
Next movie we're going to look at is a straight horror named Inhabitants, and this movie is available on VOD Digital, or more specifically, Amazon Prime. A young woman moves in with her lapsed Catholic boyfriend, only to discover that they're being haunted by a vengeful ghost of his childhood youth minister. It is directed by Matt McClung. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Inhabitants, this looks like an alright kind of supernatural horror. Now, usually I really like these supernatural horrors because to me, I find that kind of scary, but from what we saw in the trailer, I just feel like the movie looked like it had mediocre kind of creeps and scares. Now, the acting and the production in the film looked pretty good, so that was a plus, albeit the story just felt a little bit formulaic. But one of the things I did like about the story was I liked how it was kind of building up this good mystery between the two main characters, and I think it could lead to some good shocking revelations by the end of it. Now, nothing really stood out to me about The Inhabitants, but nothing was really bad about it either. I mean, the movie looks pretty good and creepy, so it's probably going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
When I was 15 years old, my mom signed me up for this group. It was like a young men's ministry. And our leader, Vernon, went with us. I mean, he had really strong views on people who left the church. He believed that people should be punished for their sins one way or another.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a drama horror mystery named Rounding, and this movie is available on VOD Digital, or more specifically, Amazon Prime. A driven young medical resident transfers to a rural hospital for a fresh start. There, the demons of his past start to catch up to him when he becomes consumed by the case of a young asthma patient. It is directed by Alex Thompson. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Rounding, this looks like a decent psychological horror. Now, the first thing that I did like about the trailer is that I thought it was another film that did a good job of building a good mystery through an interesting premise. Another point I really liked was that the movie looks like it had some really good creeps and scares in it. And even though I know that a hospital isn't exactly the most mind-blowing setting, I still think that it's tried and true that just a dark hospital has great potential for some good creeps and scares. This was another movie that I thought the action and production looked really good, and I just don't think you're going to get a B-movie vibe from it. Now, nothing is really blowing my mind, but the only real drawback that I could see through the film is that I don't know exactly how fast and furious the creeps and scares are going to come, because it is slated as a drama horror, so you could get more of just like a cerebral slow burn. All in all, I do think that Rounding looks pretty good, and it's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
James.
Why are you here?
I was required to be.
So much of rural medicine is about the patient. It's part of our job to care.
We're gonna get you better.
Oh, really? You're gonna do that?
Last movie we're going to take a look at is an action-adventure horror named The Gorge, and this movie is available on Apple TV+. Two highly trained operatives become close after being sent to protect opposite sides of a mysterious gorge. When an evil emerges, they must work together to survive what lies within. It is directed by Scott Derrickson. Okay, so after watching the trailer for The Gorge, this one looks like a good creature feature action horror. Now, standing out right away is the cast in this one. You get Anna Taylor-Joy and you get Sigourney Weaver, so you just know that the movie's gonna have like a really good production and solid performances. The next standout to me was this kind of mysterious plot where you get Anna Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller both tasked with protecting either side of this gorge, which is supposed to be the doorway to hell. Now, on a grander note, like people kind of protecting this doorway to hell, it is pretty unique, but not especially, but I really like a lot of the elements going on here, especially with the relationship that grows between the guards, just them being on opposite sides of a huge chasm. It's interesting to see how their relationship builds and how they communicate. So it really does look like we're going to get some pretty good interactions playing out on screen. Now, they do call this movie an action adventure, and you do see some good action sequences at the beginning with Anna Taylor-Joy being like a sniper character. But I'm assuming that they must go into the gorge early for them to really call this an action film, because you do see a lot of kind of military stance type scenes. But I don't think that they want to really spoil the creatures of the film, so they don't show us a lot of action, but usually kind of an alien action movie like this does come with a lot of gore. And honestly, again, they don't really want to show us too much of it, but if the gorge holds a lot of creatures and not just like one menacing stalking creature, I think we're going to get a lot of that. Now, The Gorge looks like a good action movie with a standout cast and an original-esque story, so I think this one's going to get a regular to higher priority on my watch list.
So what's the mission? To keep people from going in the gorge?
No. You need to stop what's in the gorge from coming out.
What the hell is that?
The gorge is the door to hell. And we're standing guard at the gate.
Well, guys, that's it for me and 8 brand new releases for you guys to watch. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did find a couple of gems for your watch list, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to make a couple of picks this week, the first movie I'm going to pick is A Knight's Tale. I just think it looked really good. Again, I really like that medieval setting. I thought that even like the armor and even the costumes looked good. I thought that a lot of the creatures and enemies looked good. I thought the action scenes looked good, and some of the magic they were using looked like the effects were good and dynamic. And there was some instances where you saw some really bloody kind of covered characters, even though they didn't show it. But these medieval tales, man, and just like sword wounds, they usually are pretty gashing and bloody. So I just think that it looks like a good medieval, gory, maybe creepy, because I've never really seen a fantasy movie. Well, okay, so I haven't really seen a fantasy movie broach into horror that often, so I'm always interested to see if the movie can actually do something that can like scare me or creep me out. So I think that's going to be the first pick of the week. And I usually only do 2 picks, but I think I'm going to have to do like my usual second pick is kind of 2 picks, just to, because I am interested about a couple movies, because I do think this week looks like we get a lot of kind of bigger budget production movies. The last few weeks, there's been a lot of B movies, and I don't think there's one B movie in this list. But the next movie I am going to pick is the movie Sumala. I just think it looked super gory. It had a good creepy vibe. Again, I love that classic horror feel, you know, where the characters can look normal and then turn around and look completely zombified, and just some more of those kind of classic, maybe unrealistic elements, but makes for just a good kind of encompassing horror. And the last pick in this kind of joint pick week is going to be The Gorge. Not only am I just really excited about the cast, because you got Anna Taylor-Joy, and I do kind of enjoy her films. They're not always all my favorite films, but I do think that she is a good actress overall. I love Sigourney Weaver. I have a feeling it's going to be a bit of a smaller role, but still excited to see her. And I am excited about the premise. I think The Gorge looks totally creepy. Some of the action scenes look good. The scenes where she was a sniper, and when they're kind of have this relationship growing, there's a part where, I don't know, maybe he gets into some trouble and he tries to kind of go over to her. He falls into the gorge, and the way that she just like throws on her parachute or whatever and just runs and jumps like head first into the gorge, she just looks fearless. It looks like there's going to be some like good ass kicking in the film. And although it isn't super scary, I do think it's going to be my third pick of the week. Well, guys, that's it for me for real this time, as I have got a ton of movies to watch. If you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you. I appreciate you. I really do hope you guys have been taking care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Kailangan niya?